Hello, my name is David Jalali. I am the author of the book Terrorism, the Truth, which is available on Amazon.com. I'm making this video and dedicated to the families of the terrorist attack of 9/11. I would like to pass on my condolences to all the families um, of the 9/11 terrorist victims and also all the freedom seeking people of the world, especially the Americans, and because this terrorist act happened on America and over 3,400 people, innocent people, um, were the victim. It was a very sad day, and I would like to hereby pass on my condolences to the families. Having said that, I would like usually, when I talk about this issue of terrorism, is a subject which after 9/11 I started reading about it and did about 15 to 20 years on and off research on it, and finally come to a common definition of terrorism, which is used by dictionary, FBI, and United Nations worldwide. And the common definition of terrorism is use of violence against people for political aim. Use of violence for political aim. Therefore, any act that is violence against people which is for a political aim is terrorism, like wars, invasion, occupation, racism, discrimination, and apartheid regimes. All of these cause panic and violence against people because when you enslave people or commit racism, there is potential for violence. When there is invasion, occupation, and wars, there is possibility for violence. Therefore, now those are definitions of terrorism, violence against people for political aim, acts of war, invasion, occupation, discrimination, racism, apartheid are all considered terrorism. And the government or the country or the one who does more of these kind of activities, violent activities, or facilitate those violent activities or causes these violent activities where people get hurt and intimidated and coerced and killed, that one is terrorist. And the world biggest terrorist is the one who causes more of these acts. Now, considering going back about 100 years, past 100 years, which country come to your mind when I say slave mastering, warmongering, woman and baby killing, racism, apartheid, invasion, occupation, providing weapons to authoritarian or uh, dictatorships, regimes to oppress people, the regimes that are not elected by their people have been implemented or imposed on their nation, on other nations through coup d'etat, or the regimes that are created based on one race, which is racism. I'm sure you see that America is the world's biggest supplier of weapons and it's been in every war that you can think of for the past 70 to 100 years, or at least the last 70, 80 years. And also had a slavery up to the only country that had a slavery under 50 years ago and is one of the biggest supporter of apartheid regime like South Africa until early 80s, And currently, the Zionist regime of Israel, which is built based on one religion, basically the basis that they use for it to build Israel is that anybody who can prove is a Jew, has a Jewish background from any place in the world is financed to come to Palestine, occupied Palestine, which used to be Palestine, based on is because he's a Jew, and then is given free home and money to settle there, and the government there, basically, who's a Zionist uh, government, racist, it demolishes the natives' homes and replace them with Jews based on the people who claim they are Jews based on their religion. So that is, as you know, the civil laws of United States of America, the civil laws that passed like 1886, 1966, 1994, and so forth. Those laws, civil laws, is illegal to discriminate against anybody based on the religion. So United States supports that. Now, this we gotta explain here that I do not believe the people who come into another country, land, and demolish people's home and want to get a free home and money by making refugees of those natives who have lived there thousands of years. I don't think they're Jews, because I have studied the Torah in Jewish. Torah says you gotta love your neighbor as you love yourself, and I don't think somebody coming and demolishing somebody's home and attack neighboring countries, occupies their land, he loves their neighbors. That's not love. That's not at least the meaning of love that I know of. Therefore, I don't believe they are Jews. I believe they are using this as a pretext to get free land and free home and make refugees of the natives and kill them and commit crimes. So, and United States support that, as we know, based on two reasons. Because one of the reasons I research is because of religious reason. In Bible, someplace in James, I guess, verse that says that sons of Israel would have to come back to their land, and then Jesus come back. I guess that was my understanding. And this Bible that was written in many type of scripts out there from Bible, and is written different times, and this is in its own is racism, because the Bible is supposed to be the word of Jesus, who gave his life to save people and was peace-loving person. That's my understanding of Jesus. I don't think he would bring a book to discriminate against some people to give land to others. My knowledge or my understanding of the Jesus is that he won't say that. So these books were written like many years after. So maybe there was political aim here to get some free land, or maybe for some people. And so basically, I don't want to get into details of that much because I'm not a religion expert, but I said there is one religion that's why a reason for creating the racist Zionist regime by making refugees and wars in that region of West Asia, basically, is one of the reasons is the religion. And I think that is used personally to fool the fools, basically, using the ignorance of the society to gather money and force an intention. The goal, the other reason that's being supported is because the vast natural resources of the West Asia, which is oil and gas plus other minerals. So there are two reasons. One is money, one is that. But I personally, when I concluded, I studied, I believe both of them combined. The reason is just power and money. That's the only reason. Because, as you know, the Zionists, not all Zionists are Jews, and not all Jews are Zionists. Zionism started, the root came from Germany back in late 1900 to build a Jewish state, and that is on its own is a racist ideology. And then uh, Western, basically Zionism uses this ideology to control the vast natural resources of West Asia. So that is the conclusion I came as a motive. Now, United States support that, so that's supporting terrorism too. So now that we have said that, we have determined the country that does the most of these kind of acts of war, invasion, occupation, support of racism, and apartheid is the world's biggest terrorist. And therefore, when one other thing we got to hear complain, explain is that when we refer to America as a country has three parts. One part is the geographical characteristics of a country. One part is the people of a country, and one part is the government. What I'm referring to when I said United States or America, I am referring to the government, not the people, because America is a beautiful land. I've spent most of my life here since I was a teenager. I went to school here, graduated from Cal State Long Beach, and I have studied engineering. I'm licensed professional civil engineer, and I have a degree in business administration. I've also studied laws too, but I don't practice those. I practice my engineering. I had my own business, and I retired about basically between 2001 and 2005, and then I spent the rest of my time researching this subject of terrorism to prepare my book, which I published a few years ago. I've published a couple of books, but one of them is about terrorism. It's called Terrorism The Truth on Amazon.com. Now, now that we explained that, I wanted to basically to say that this terrorist act that was done back in 2001 was done by terrorists who were headed by a person named Bin Laden. Now, Bin Laden was from Saudi Arabia, and there were 19 people who committed this heinous act of terror, criminal act, which killed almost 3,500 innocent people. And it's going to always be remembered as a dark day in the history. Now, the reason I want basically to have solutions how we can prevent this situation, and this situation could have been prevented too. And but unfortunately, this 9/11 terrorist act was used as a pretext to invade countries such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Sudan, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, and Iran, which is being sanctioned, hasn't been invaded yet, but I guess it's in the process developing. All the reason was to fight terrorism. Now, uh, usually when a terror act happen or a criminal act happens, we got to go to the root to see where the criminals are from, go to their homes and deal with it and find out what the reason is. But what has been overlooked since 2011 has been the reason why 9/11 happened. Nobody discussed that because if, as an engineer, I know if you want to solve a problem, first you have to define the the problem, what it is. Then you have to go to the roots of the problem and find a solution. Now, I'm going to give you the solution, but let me analyze a little bit further that these 19 people who committed this crime, 15 of them were from Saudi Arabia, two of them from Jordan, two of them from Egypt. But the countries were invaded which didn't have anything to do with this. So I believe this whole thing is sad and but it's a strategy, was a strategy maybe because if you go back and look at Bin Laden and the people who committed this, we need to go look at Afghanistan. Early 80s, Russian invaded Afghanistan. And United States, Arab Emirates, allies, United States and its allies in the region who are a bunch of imposed dictators on the region. None of them are democratically elected. All of them are imposed either by UK or US, CIA, or MI6 with the help of Mossad. Like, look at United Arab Emirates, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, like Bahrain, like Qatar. These are US allies which helped recruit and train the group that Taliban is called Taliban. These mercenaries were sent, they were Arabs, Afghan, and Pakistanis. They were trained by CIA, United States, UK, and NATO, I guess, and with the support of many of the Gulf region, Persian Gulf region states like United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Oman. And they were sent to Afghanistan to fight Soviets, to kick Soviets out of Afghanistan. These people, up to 1988, 89, they were able to kick Soviet out. But when they kicked Soviet out, then Bin Laden, basically, some of them were Arabs. They were from Saudi Arabia. And America has been in Saudi Arabia since World War II, as you know, with many bases in Saudi Arabia, and U.S. Navy is in Persian Gulf. They're protecting these puppet dictators because they are like a company for United States. United States puts a manager in charge, like that dictator who's the king or the Khalifa or whatever you call it, and then it runs that company, which is that company for U.S. and U.K. and the Zionist, Western Zionism, basically. So they helped recruit these Taliban, send them, kick the Soviets out of Afghanistan. But Bin Laden, some of these came back to their home. Bin Laden was from, some of them were Arabs. So Major Bin Laden was from Saudi Arabia and then asked the United States to leave the troops from Saudi Arabia, which United States refused. And then they turned back and apparently caused the 9/11. Now, these Bin Laden and these Taliban were all trained by CIA, by United States, with the help of their countries, and none of them were from Iraq, Afghanistan, or these 9/11 criminals, terrorists. None of them from Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, or none of these countries. But United States invaded these countries, make them from richest countries in their region to poorest country, causing about 40 million people to be displaced, refugees, and killed millions of people in the process. Just and then we come back to the same thing. It was not really for fighting terrorism, even so the claim of United States government was to fight terrorism. You know, there is a book written by James Baker. He was the Secretary of State, I believe, during Reagan Bush era, and it's called Politics of Diplomacy. If you read that book, back in 90s, James Baker says if we have a goal, we intentionally leak the process, the strategy to get to that goal. If the people respond negatively, we change the strategy, but the goal is the same. The goal was to get control over the uh, vast majority of oil and gas rich countries in West Asia, to the ones who were not totally in the court of the Western Zionism, basically. They were not, or in other words, they were not allies. So, because Saudi Arabia, basically, Bahrain, UAE, basically Emirates, Oman, Qatar, and Kuwait, they are, or Jordan, Egypt, they are, all those governments are either through a coup d'etat, were put by United States and UK, which partners, in Western Zionism, the main ones. But the Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Iran and Lebanon and Libya were not basically in 100% in their court as their allies. So this 9/11 was used as a pretext, excuse to invade those countries, to bring them, occupy them. But then Iran, basically as the biggest country in the Middle East and the strongest one, had a revolution in 1979. See, Iran, in the past 100 years, they had three revolutions. One in 1905, they had a constitution um, uh, revolution, which they become a democracy like England, monarchy, constitutional monarchy. But UK caused the coup d'etat back in 1920 and brought 2025 within that range and brought back a general by the name of Reza Khan, put him in power. And then Reza Khan went to the parliament, start beating up parliamentaries, whoever opposed him, kill newspaper, newsman, close newspapers, and run the country for about 15, 20 years with the iron fist and killing a lot of people. And then back in World War II, then allies, US, UK, they want to help Russia. They invaded Iran, occupied, and in the process, this king was displaced. They put his son, Muhammad Reza Shah, in the power. And from then on, US supported the son because after World War II, UK had lost most of its colonial power, and US basically replaced UK. And but Iranians, they elected a prime minister through a process, democratically elected Dr. Mossadegh. But in 1953, CIA overthrew Dr. Mossadegh because he was nationalizing the oil, which British says the oil Iranian belonged to them. I don't know. They go in a country, occupy country, and the wealth of the country, they say we are the owner, which is not even their country. But that's how the colonialists and imperialists think. They think they own the world. That's why they go around, occupy countries, and tell people how to live. And if they resist, defend themselves, they call them terrorists. This is a propaganda that Hollywood manufactures. And to use, basically capitalize on the ignorance of the society, fool the fools. And a lot of people believe it. But then, and also the other lie they say is defending America. America's border to the north is Canada, to the south is Mexico, east is Atlantic Ocean, and west is Pacific Ocean. What are American troops are doing in Korea, Vietnam, or in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan defending America? How is that defending America? The best way to defend America is bring troops home and stop occupation and invasion and wars and supporting dictators. Let people choose their own leaders and then deal with the people. We won't have any terrorism and America is protected without any guns. But all of this is being done under this big lie to make money. That's what I'm coming to. So basically, that's what happened. The Iranians, the CIA overthrew Dr. Mossadegh, who was democratically elected prime minister. He was Western educated lawyer. He has got his doctorate in law when he was 26 from Switzerland. But he was very educated. You know, he wasn't religious like the government right now. So United States toppled them, put the Shah back in the power, created a secret service which killed and tortured a lot of people. And the Shah actually, after 25 years, which CIA kept him in the power with two contracts, one 10 years, one 15 years, 80% of the income of the country was giving 40% to United States, 40% to UK, 20% was buying arms like Saudi Arabia, who buys billions to oppress his own people. So prior to revolution in Iran, the third revolution that happened in 1979, if you look at UNESCO data, United Nations, Iran was selling 7 million barrels a day. Iran only had 30 million population, 30, 35. It was selling 7 million barrels of oil per day at $35 a barrel, which equals to $350 of today per barrel. So imagine selling 7 million barrels of oil at $350 a barrel. And back then, but in Iran, only a couple of cities capital was kind of asphalt roads and had light and electricity and gas. Most of the country outside didn't have sanitary, didn't have gas, didn't have water, drinking water. They had to drink well water, and no electricity, no schools, no hospitals. People would die traveling hours to go to hospital. While the Shah, which was like MBS of Saudi Arabia or MBZ of UAE, the rulers of those, which is they spend all their wealth buying weapons to oppress their own people rather than buying, establish that, rather than building the infrastructure of the country, like healthcare, education, and paved roads, and universities, and so forth. So Iranians revolted again in 79, toppled the Shah, who fled to United States, and from 79 to now, it's been like 42 years, almost 41 years. The country, before the revolution, 85% could not read and write. There were only a handful of universities before revolution. 46 people lived under poverty. The Shah was selling 7 million barrels oil per day at $350 of today. But after the revolution, right now in Iran, if you check the statistics online, despite that the US and Western Zionism sanctions on Iran for the past 41 years, Iran has not been able to sell maybe more than 1 or 2 million barrel and in hiding oil per day. And the United States, as you know, is hijacks Iranian ships, prevents it from selling oil, is punishing the countries who try to buy Iranian oils. Basically, is coercing them to submit, sanctioning it. But under the sanctions, selling one-third the oil that the Shah was selling, but the population is 85 million, with almost three times as population, selling less than one-third the oil that the Shah was selling at much cheaper price because it's done in hiding in violation of the sanction, the US sanctions. In Iran, the government has built over 4,000 universities. They have over like 15 million people out of the 85 million are university graduates, maybe master's degree, PhDs. They have developed aerospace. They have developed their military missiles, putting satellite into orbit, and they don't need to send students abroad anymore unless somebody wants to go on his own. Otherwise, there is opportunity to go to university, and actually for free. Universities in Iran are free until you get even a PhD. The government pays for these universities. And then healthcare, Iran is one of top 10 countries as far as the healthcare in the world. If you study, check that out. All of these under US sanctions. And then 97% of Iranians can read and write. These are the data of United Nations. I'm a researcher. I read these. I don't listen to the propagandas by Voice of America or BBC. These are government tells them information they give you is to mislead the people. The facts, as you know, Jesus said, the Bible says the truth shall set you free. So I'm saying that based on what majority of people believe in the wording that we have to tell the truth. So I'm telling the truth that I have researched, and you're welcome to research and find out. But despite of these, the country Iran has advanced. So compared to the countries that are U.S. allies, and U.S. Wants to take Iran out, and as part of this 9/11 war against terror, the ultimate goal was Iran, according to Wesley Clark and according to Bob Woodward, the plan of attack book. He says that before even 9/11, Wesley Clark says he went to the Pentagon to meet his general friend, and his general friend told him that there are 7 countries planning to attack. And Wesley says, I asked him why. He said, because we can. And he says the list, Iran was one of them, like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, Libya, and Iran and Sudan. And all of them have been attacked. As you know, they have been divided and attacked. Iran is the last one that they're working on right now. And this was planned before 9/11. 9/11 was used as an excuse to war on terror, but it created more terror, as you know. It created Daesh or ISIS. And the ISIS, according to Wesley Clark, was created by America to fight the Lebanese. because the resistant group in Lebanese to take that country because no other group were willing to fight them. They were fighting for their countries. And according to Donald Trump, the ISIS was created by Bill Clinton and Obama, the same reason. So see, all of these terror groups were created by America according to the American leaders or scientists such as, Noam Chomsky, intellectuals, I.M. Pepe, and so forth. And then given arms by United States and then used as a pretext to invade that region and put that on fire to install puppet dictators again in Iran and in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, who is obedient with ally like Saudi Arabia. Now, the king of Saudi Arabia, even a journalist was his relative who just criticized the king. It wasn't even opposing the king. And the king lured Khashoggi, you heard of him, they lured him to the embassy of Saudi Arabia in Ankara, Turkey, and then chopped him up and then put him in plastic bag and buried him around Istanbul, Turkey, in Ankara, capital of Turkey, is just because the guy was opposing. And in Saudi Arabia, they cut your head if you dare to say something to the king. And a woman can drive, can vote. Nobody can vote in Sudan. Nobody can vote in any countries who are U.S. allies in that region, like United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan. They all run by one person who is a dictator, and United States gives them like $1 billion to some of them, takes billions from the other ones, like gets 70, 80 billion a year from Saudi Arabia, give a couple of billion arms to Egypt and Jordan, but take billions from UAE and Saudi Arabia. See how that works? All a big lie. In the process, they tell people anybody says something, they tell he's anti-Semitic or anti-Jews. See, all the Zionists are not Jews. All the Jews are not Zionists. There are Muslim Zionists, there are Christian Zionists, there are atheist Zionists. Zionism is using a religion which is racism to create a country to discriminate against other ones. So it's a racism. United Nations Resolution 3379, 1975. Zionism is racism. Zionism is the problem of the war of terrorism in the region. Now, when I said that, I would like to give you a solution too. That their solution does not need to be war. You cannot put out fire with fire. I would like to say something here before I give you the solution. Whatever I say here, or I say any of my speeches, my intention is to create peace. I believe peace comes through understanding. Like Einstein once says, peace cannot be kept by force. Peace is achieved by understanding. And as Shakespeare well says, ignorance is dark. Ignorance is lack of knowledge. I have spent over 20 years of my life researching this subject. I've come with a peaceful solution, and everything I say is not for the people who are seeking violence, because I believe violence is the tools of states. Wisdom is the tools of free people. And the free people of the world, free loving people, they can achieve happiness, coexistence, prosperity, and growth through peace. Not the peace that has a foundation on cruelty and force and oppression and discrimination and racism. As Martin Luther King well says, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere because no man is an island anymore. The whole world is connected. So if we build a country based on racism and one religion, that is injustice to some people. So that's not going to create, you can't have the peace. I mean, I want to open before I give you a solution, open a parenthesis. I heard Jared Kushner, I guess that's the son-in-law, Trump's son-in-law. He tells countries, make these speeches and tells Iran or the Arab countries, you should not stay in the past. We should look for the future. We can't live with this. We have to let go of the past. That's a great idea. I agree with him, but he should start at home. The same racist Zionist regime that is you're defending and trying to have peace from everybody with was built on the past. One of the reasons that built and you supported or the Zionists who come to that region, demolish people's home and get free land and money, U.S. taxpayers' money, it supports racism, whereas racism is illegal in the United States, but overseas, I guess, is okay. One of the reasons that the foundation that the Zionist regime of Israel was built on was that you guys claim that that land belonged to Jews. God gave that land to Jews, and you say we found artifacts going back 3,500 years ago. Therefore, that land belonged to us. You yourself, your claim is based on the past, the past that goes 3,500 years ago. Then why you tell other people you can't live in the past, and their past is only 100 years. I mean, you guys basically took their land 70 years ago, 80 years ago. They should let go of the 80 years ago, but you don't want to let go of 3,500 years ago. You have built your atrocity, the racism, and demolishing the people's home and making millions of people in that region refugee. And you guys, I mean, United States basically has made over 40 million people of the West Asia into refugee by the war on terror, which was created to protect the same ideology that the Zionist regime of Israel is built on, based on ideology that 3,500 years ago, God or Jesus or whoever wrote that Bible wrote in there that this land belongs to the sons of Israel 3,500 years ago. And then 70 years ago, you guys with force came from Europe all over the world and uh, kick those people or kill those people who were lived there for thousands of years ago and occupy their home and their property, and then you call them terrorists and telling them don't live in the past. They're wandering around the world. The refugees that have been kicked out of the Israel or the Palestine, let them come back to their home, to their land, and then let with the Jews who are there, Christian, Jews, Muslim, all elect their own government. Isn't that a better solution? That's a democratic solution. That's a democracy. But no, if anybody says that, you said don't leave it. But using the past, Jared Kushner basically using the past, which is 3,000, thousands of years ago past, to justify an occupation and a racism, and the people who have been kicked out of their home are not being allowed to come back based on the past that goes 3,500 years ago. But then he asks Iran or the other people in the region, get out of the past, your past, which is 70 years ago. Now, if we're trying to create justice and give people what is theirs, who 3,500 years ago lived there, giving them back the rightful owners the land. Then what is United States doing? United States has been built here, occupied this land of Indians over 400 years ago, massacred over 140 million Indians. There are only 5 million left today. Why don't we bring the Indians? Let's start at home. This is more urgent because, first of all, Palestinians were kicked out of the Israel 70 years ago. That is a more recent history. If we wanted to try to create justice, we should start more recent one. The Palestinians should be allowed to come back to Palestine or Israel. With the natives over there, all the natives, regardless of their religion, choose a government of their choosing who everybody in that land has equal rights. One country, one capital, Jerusalem. That's a good idea. Actually, I do. And then all the countries in the Middle East who are democratically elected representative of their own people, they will have peace with Israel. That's the ultimate peace. Because Israel or Palestine, whatever country they want to call it, the people who live in this land and born there, regardless of their race and their religion, whether Muslim, Jew, Christian, or atheist, they should, all the people who born in the land of Palestine and Israel, what is called right now, part of it is called Israel, part of it is called Palestine, all that land, one land, Palestinian and Jews and Muslims and Christians, they should be allowed to vote, elect a representative based on their population, and then form a government of their own choosing, and everybody has equal rights. That is the ultimate solution. Then the whole world would automatically accept it and have peace with it. You don't need to go get bunch of puppet dictators like Bahrain. Bahrain has 500,000 population and is a Khalifa, is not elected by the people over there. Is English put the Bahraini Khalifa in power like 56 years ago. And his people is being supported, protected by United States CIA and Fifth Fleet in there. If US pulls out of Bahrain with its fleet and Saudi Arabia takes its troops out of Bahrain, that king won't last 24 hours. These people hating. There has never been any election. There have been many riot, many revolutions in Bahrain to kick this Khalifa out, which is a king. It is not elected. Is a ruthless ruler. But the United States keeps us in power with Britain because it's their stooge, and they bring him and have a peace, and it says people of Bahrain want to have normal relation with Israel. Who are you trying to fool? You may fool some of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. The ruler of Bahrain is put in power by British and US supported, is not elected representative of Bahraini people. Why don't you go ask the Bahraini people, see if they want to have normal relation with the racist occupied regime of Israel? They don't. The same with UAE. In UAE, anybody criticizes the Khalifa is UAE has less than 1 million population. There are three islands, three sections. They have three Khalifa that are not elected. It's a family related. They are not elected, and they are ruthless rulers. To anybody dares to criticize them, they kill him. They have been installed by the British in 1971 as a coup d'etat by force. They have never had election in UAE. They never had an election in Bahrain. So those rulers of Bahrain and elite, they are like, you have a company, you put a manager in place, and if he doesn't listen to you, you fire him. The same thing you did with the Shah of Iran back in 79. So these rulers, they are not really. First of all, they never were in war with Israel to have peace. That you come and say another lie, that you say peace between UAE and Bahrain and Israel. There never been a war anyway. They are not neighbors. Secondly, these rulers are puppet dictators. They are not representing their people. They are not. They haven't been elected. So you bring in them, make a show to fool the people of United States and people of the world. These people want to have a normal relation with Israel. Okay, but those countries together, they are not more than 1 million, 1.5 million population. Their rulers, Khalifa or the king, is not even representing the will of their 1.5 million because he's not elected by those people. So this is another Hollywood show with the same lies you guys use to create a racist regime of Israel based on religion and falsification of history. That 3,500 years ago, these people lived there. They don't even they have multiple generations born in Russia, in Europe, in different places of the world. They don't have a common culture. And some of them are not even Jews. They just believe they have heritage, Jewish heritage, and they want free land and free money. You bring it, you make refugee and kill the local natives, and then you call that just, and then you bring a couple of puppet dictators now trying to push Saudi Arabia MBS. That Trump says if you don't support Saudi Arabia, they won't last 24 hours. It's like a milking cow. You bring the milking cow, MBS milking cow, and the Khalifa, UAE, and Bahrain, and you say that's the peace with Israel. That is a manufactured consent, like Noam Chomsky. So they're begging another law. You guys are basically doing some show to fool the people. Now, if you want to have, now you're trying to press the Kuwait, which is only like another 1 million people, another Khalifa that English put in the power after World War II, or Oman, the same pay. These are all stooges of British or US put in power. There have never been elections. So a government can only represent its nation if it is elected by the nation people. The only country that has elections in the Middle East is Iran, and United States for 41 years has been sanctioning Iran, torturing Iranians, cutting their food. And Pompeo says if Iranians, if they want to eat, they have to listen to us. to become a normal country. What is a normal country to Pompeo? It's like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, who have a ruler oppressing their people sitting on there that's not elected, is imposed from outside, and is killing people if they criticize the government, and taking all the money and giving it to their masters, buying arms or spend it on their own lavish lifestyle. While their people, when they run out of oil, like Kuwait right now, they have to starve to death in the desert. So when Kushner says get out of the past, first he should think that he should himself get out of the past. His past that 3,500 years ago helped him create the Zionist regime of Israel. You start with yourself, my friend. You got to do what you preach. You got to practice what you preach. And then expect others to come out of their past that goes only 70 years ago. Your past goes 30, you have used 3,500 years old reason, whether true or lie, I don't know. People write these books, and who wrote it, what intention he had, or what was the benefit, and they write it to give the book to their, get free land and free money. For free money, people do a lot of things. They right. So you yourself use the past that goes that long, and then they tell the people in that region, Iran, and then Palestinians or the Arabs over there, you come out the past and talk. Okay, so when you come out of the past, I'm sure they will come out of the past too, and none of this will happen. Now, I have a solution for all of this. Having said all of that, the one who provides the arms to the dictators is United States of America. Like $70 billion, Saudi Arabia, which dictator, no election. All of these for the past 7 years on the false claim of democracy, human rights, and freedom. But which one of these countries, US allies, have freedom, democracy, and human rights? You name one of them. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, Egypt, Jordan. They never had any election. The first step of human right is people have a right to choose their own leaders. These leaders are imposed from outside. Then you tell them that you attack the ones and threaten and sanction the one that have had since the revolution 41 years ago in Iran. They have had more than 20 elections. The parliament is elected by the people. The president is elected by the people. The leader is elected by the Guardian Council, which by Council of Experts. The Council of Experts is elected every 8 years by the people. So see, every government in Iran, every person that's serving in the government of Iran is elected by the people. They have city council that's elected by the people. City mayors elected by the city council. The same like United States. A lot of laws like United States as far as the election goes. It's just the system is a religious system within the religious system. But United States has a system too. It's a capitalist system, which is it says it is not religious. But that's another biggest lie. Anybody who wants to go to Congress or become president, what does he swear on? A Bible. So he's religious. Dollar on it, the American money, currency, on there it says in God we trust. How can a country be secular, non-religion? And on currency, it says, in God we trust. So this is another lie. See, that every claim that's made by the Zionists, when I say Zionists, I'm talking about the countries or the people, regardless of their religion, whether Muslim, Christian, Jews, or whatnot, atheists, who support their racist Zionist regime of Israel occupation, which occupies another's land based on an ideology of 3,500 years ago, despite of the fact that Mr. Kushner claims that we need to get out of the past. They use the same past to justify the occupation, and the natives are being massacred and made homeless and being forced out and replaced by people who claiming they have Jewish roots. They may not even believe in Judaism. The Jewish root, and they bring them and give them free land and free money because they support United States policies of imperialism in the Western Asia to have control over the gas and oil. That is basically what's happening. Now, So see where the lies are. Where you see, we see why terrorists happens. Bin Laden. Bin Laden beef was that the United States should get out of his country, which was Saudi Arabia. He was from Saudi Arabia, and those people, the 9/11 terrorists, 15 November from Saudi Arabia, two from Jordan, two from Egypt, and all allies, U.S. allies on the war against terror. The justification that used to occupy like Palestine or Israel and kill those natives and make them homeless and refugee out of them and invade Lebanon, occupy part of the neighboring countries, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, and harass them and harass those countries. Now, the reason was due to ideology, the past that Jared Kushner is asking everybody else to get out of it. But he himself and his clan uses that past to occupy the land and massacre the natives. You see that Jesus, who is the favorite of these people, Jesus says hypocrite is the one who claim others for the same crime. Now, United States or Jared Kushner or his clan, they blame Iran because of being a religious country, Islamic. Why is Islamic? Why Saudi Arabia Islamic? But before Iran became Islamic Republic in 1979, Israel, America, UK, and the Zionists created Israel, the regime of Israel in Palestine in 1948. 50 years before that, they created a one religion Jewish state. So once you are starting having calling states by their race, you're dividing the world, then you create conflicts. Because somebody is going to, whoever gets more power, is going to get somebody else land from others. That's what's happening. And they're going to be war, and the United States and Western countries, they sell their weapons and make money. So you see what the motives is making money. But those people die. And then they go bomb them again. They call them terrorists if they defend their home. Like the Iranians defend their home, they fought and beat the General Soleimani. He was the hero of beating ISIS, Daesh. He's the one who killed the He led the main war against Daesh to eliminate them. United States was only bombing from the top. United States bombed Vietnam for how many years with B-52? North Korea, did it get anywhere or Syria? No. You have to have boots on the ground. The boots on the ground were headed by General Soleimani, who beat Daesh and ISIS, killed them. But U.S. killed him too, Trump. Because why? Because U.S. didn't want ISIS to go out. That was a lie. Because U.S. created ISIS to take over the Western Asia to make a government like Saudi Arabia in that Iran, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan. Because ISIS, if you study ISIS, they follow the same ideology as Saudi Arabia follows, MBS. Because ISIS cuts head, one religion, Wahhabi. It's called Wahhabism. Because ISIS follows Wahhabism, Saudi Arabia follows Wahhabism, and United States is the biggest supporter, protector of Saudi Arabia in the world, and MBS, and covers all of their crimes. And the US and UAE, Saudi Arabia, US, and Qatar, they all were supporting, giving arms and money to ISIS. And US created ISIS, according to Wesley Clark and Trump and Bob Woodward. You see what I'm saying? So all of this, you see who is the world's biggest terrorist? Now I have solution for all of this. Solution all of these in the Middle East to bring peace and prosperity, which is my intention to America, which I love, and all over the world, which I love too, and I love everybody on the face of the earth. I love human beings, and I would like everybody to live in peace and harmony and go about their enjoying their life and building more hospitals, more roads, more schools, and people. We won't have any homelesses. Trump spends $993 billion, $1 trillion in military budget, whereas we have like 80 million Americans are without insurance, like 40 million without job, like 49 million on food stamp, like 30 million kids don't have enough food to eat at night, like another 30, 40 million unemployed, like millions of people are homeless in America. America has right now, before Trump came to the power, the deficit America owed $23 trillion. When Trump was supposed to lower that, to cut the wars and lower that, but Trump has spent another $3 trillion, $3 trillion more. So America currently owes $26 trillion in debt. The country is broke. But he spends another $1 trillion making bigger bombs, bigger atomic bombs, and more bullets, while 200,000 Americans have been dead within the past 7 months because of a disease which he could have controlled. But he's too busy building bigger bombs and bigger bullets and protecting puppet dictators to control the world natural resources for corporations in America who pay less taxes than an individual and middle class. And the amount of taxes that the middle class in America pay, that money is used to support racism abroad, where racism is legal inside America. Is used to make bigger bombs and bigger nukes and more bullets and support dictators around the world rather than being spent in America for healthcare, for education, for infrastructure. American infrastructure is falling apart. Most of these bridges and roads in America, as you know, I'm an engineer, they were built in 1950s. They only have a 50-year maximum lifespan. That's why in winters, when the snow comes and the ice roads gets icy, you hear these bridges collapsing and a bunch of people die on it because our government, rather than spending the money to make us safer in here, spends it make bigger atomic bombs or more bombs. Do you think that's right? Do you think that government represent the interest of American people? And he could have 1% of that $1 trillion that he spends every year on military blowing people up. 1% of that, if it's used on healthcare, we could any kind of disease could come up with a virus within a few months because healthcare, and less people will die because there would be more PPEs, there would be more hospital, more insurance, more doctors, more nurses, more care for people. But intentionally, by providing less care to cut the cost, Trump killed most elderly because this coronavirus kills more old people and sick people. And old people are sick people who are costing the system money. So Trump, by ignoring the disease, the coronavirus, ignoring the correct strategy, developing correct strategy to fight it, to save lives. He let it go. Now look at who has died. 200 million, that is officially by the hospital. The ones who register a hospital are about 196,000 have died. But the ones who die outside the hospital or in elderly cares, they're not part of this data. So with the studies that MIT did, John Hopkins did, there is a Boston Global was an article a few weeks ago that the number should be 10 to 12 times more of this because not everybody registered. And it's not even finished yet. So we have a government who spends our taxes to support apartheid, to support racism, building more bombs, more bullets to blow up the countries and support puppet dictators around the world, whereas Americans are dying by thousands per day. I mean, 1,000 to 2,000 Americans die per day. I mean, these Americans are the one who work like slaves, and they are the one who paid these taxes. This is their money. This should be spent on us, on the Americans inside America to make American life better. But Trump doesn't care about anybody except money. He is a psychopath. He's a psychopath terrorist. The same is Kushner is the same way too. Look at what kind of lie he says. He tells everybody else, you need to get out of the past. He thinks he's talking to kids. You need to get out of the past, and he uses an ideology from 3,000 years ago to build a nation who is terrorizing the whole region over the millions of people, and it has caused millions of death and destruction over the past 7 years, and bring a couple of puppet dictators who put in power by himself. They know if they don't listen to him, they're not going to be in power tomorrow morning. And they only have like 1.5 million population, bunch of sheiks, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, like Kuwait, Oman. They were put in power through coup d'etat or World War II before that by British or United States. And United States, Trump says any of them, if they don't listen, United States withdraw from the support. Their own people revolt, and they won't last 24 years. They need United States, a foreign government, to protect them so they can oppress their own people. And is that a deal? Do you think that's in a contract? When you enter into a contract with anybody, it's the law. The contract that both sides will have to be willing and able. If you're coercing somebody, you put a gun into somebody's head and tell him sign this contract, and he's not willing to do that. That's what you're doing when you tell him Bahraini people didn't elect their leader who's signing this contract. So they don't have anything to say on it. You're signing contract with a nation which, through you put a bullet in their head. You tell him if he doesn't sign it, he's not going to be in power in 2 days. So he has to sign to survive. But that is illegal contract anyway. So you're fooling either yourself or fooling the people. But I don't think you're fooling yourself. I think you know what you're doing. That's the nature of Zionism. Zionism, according to United Nations Resolution 3379, is racism. And a racist person doesn't have logic. Racism is emotional, is not logical. Otherwise, if you think and you're a logical person, you see all the humans were born basically from flesh and blood and everything, and all the under the skin, they have the same organs. They feel pain the same. They enjoy the same things. They produce the same thing. They have kids. They they make love. They have kids. They eat. They live. But some people lived under the sun in Africa for ages, for thousands of years, in 125, 130-degree temperature. Their skin burned and their genes are darker. And people who lived in England, because it's 9 months of the year, is or Russia is foggy, they hardly see sun, and sun is not as strong, they become fair lighter. Otherwise, they are human, all of them. But to the racists, that's not the case. To the racists, if you, based on national origin, or based on ideology, if you can prove that you have a Jewish background, you can be given money and a free home, bring to somebody else's land in Palestine, and demolish the natives' home and given a home and give them money, and then kill the native or force them out, make a refugee out of them. And if they say something, go attack the neighbors, because the refugees go to neighbors' places and the neighboring countries, and the object you attack them, you occupy part of the land too, and then later on you annex it. You're supporting this. So America is supporting this, supporting apartheid, racist regime, and occupier. Now, I have a solution for that. I gave you the solution before. The solution is democracy. It's the same thing America preaches but doesn't practice. America should let the countries, like for example, you want to solve the problem with Iran, you don't want to have any war with Iran, don't give Iran any excuse to use it against you. Okay, solve the Palestinian issues. I have a solution for it, Mr. Kushner and Trump, my friend. You're listening to wrong advisors. These are the people who are around you. They're stupid friends. They are not smart. I'm a friend of anybody who wants peace. If you want peace, I'm your friend. And I give you a solution. What you do is in Israel or Palestine, part of it is called Gaza, West Bank is called Palestine, and part of the Israel occupied is called Israel. Israel and West Bank and Gaza, all the people who are born in that land that is neighbored by Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Syria, and the Mediterranean, that parcel of land is Israel and Palestinians occupy. Anybody who is born in this land, register everybody and have everybody vote what type of government they want. Elect first parliamentaries. Per every 100,000, one representative elect. And then let them elect one. And then these representatives sitting there and they develop a constitution and a government. And then elect the prime minister or the president or king if they want. That is the solution. You cannot force a piece, a fake history, justify an occupation with a fake history thousands of years ago, and also with a fake peace plan, with the fake leaders. These are not, as I said, because the UAE, the Bahrain, the Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Emirates, all of these people you're going to bring to the table. They are not representing their people. So this is not going to end. You're just going to neutralize it. Just like if you want to go pull your teeth, they give you a needle shot first to numb your teeth so you don't feel it, pull the teeth out. But you just numbing those people to pull the teeth out. What was once you pull the teeth out, the pain starts after the medication impact goes away. And so this terrorism is going to get bigger because those people, those puppet peoples of Bahrain, peoples of Emirates, peoples of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, that you are, Egypt and Jordan, that you are bringing in, forcing them to sign a peace with the occupying Zionist apartheid regime of Israel, a fake peace plan. Those people eventually, because it's not going to start, it's going to be only a fire under dust, fire under ashes. When it's going to come up, it's going to become a situation worse than Iran. And the Iran situation, there's also potential for another war. Look at in Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Russia, China. They're becoming allies, and then U.S. gets into a war, and Syria, and this is going to go blow out of proportion. It's going to get much dangerous than what we see today if we do not handle this correctly. I, want to live in peaceful place. I want to be secure. My solution for security is the peaceful way, is democracy. So, as I said, if those people in Israel, West Bank, Gaza, they all get together, elect a representative, like, for example, every 100,000 one representative, every 10,000 one representative, every 100,000. There are how many people? There are like 12 million people live there total, maybe 10 million people live there total maximum. So they're going to have 10 million people. They're going to have 100 representatives every 100,000 if you get, right? You get the parliament, get every 50,000 one. They're going to have 200 representatives. These people who are representing those people who are the elected, voted for them in that region, and they can vote regarding their religion. Who cares what everybody's religion is? If you divide the land based on the region, this conflict is gonna keep go forever as long as this is happening this way. But once you say, regardless of religion, elect their own representative, every 50,000 one representative, they elect representative 200, they sit there and they develop a constitution because they are representing the people of the land who born there, who belong there. And the people who have been even forced out, they should be compensated. They should be allowed. If someone want to come back, let them come back. Someone want to go, give them money, give them money. But compensate those, that's justice. And then you have an ultimate solution, peace. And everybody can go to Israel or Palestine, whatever it's called, because there is a country there that has a government that's represented by its people, like Europe, most of Europe, or maybe United States. And then that country becomes secure for everybody who lives there and secure for everybody from the world who wants to travel there and go pray or go, because that Jerusalem, it becomes international city. Let everybody go there, pray and come back. Praying doesn't hurt anybody, and go, rather than right now under the gun, under bombs blowing. This guy is occupying, Israel is occupying part of Syria, part of Lebanon, part of Egypt, part of Jordan, and give these Israel, give these lands back, go back to the borders where the Palestinians are, give the Syrians back, give the Lebanese back. Then you're going to have peace there, which is everybody upset. Then Iran will not have any excuse. The Iranians, I'm sure, they accept it too, because Iranians, the government is represented by representative of the people elected that Iranian government. No matter what is propaganda, you have Hollywood running this on the internet and Voice of America and BBC. These people you bringing and giving you advices, they are not your friends. They are enemies. They are enemies. They may be your friends, but they are enemies of American people because they give the Trump and Kushner the wrong advice and the wrong information, misinformation. There are a bunch of people who don't know, they're illiterate, and they were thinking of their own pocket. They want to make their own money, their own interest. They do not see the interest of the people as a whole. I see the interest of the people as a whole. And I don't want anything for this. This is my own turn. I'm retired. I'm a researcher. I read and I come up with this solution. And if I can be help, I'd be glad to be of help to discuss. This solution would work. It's a peaceful solution. Once you have this, Then you're going to have election in Saudi Arabia, election in UAE, you have election in Bahrain, election in Oman, in Kuwait, in Jordan, in Egypt, and then the West Africa, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran has election too, and those countries in the region, they all live in peace together, and they have to sell their oils, they have to sell their gas. They will be friends of Americans. They won't hate Americans. Right now, if you are American, you go into Iraq and Afghanistan, they hate you. They want to kill you because of this. Because America goes in there with bombs, $1 million bombs on their head and kill. Look at Yemen. Yemenis people, all they want to elect their own government, but they have been being bombed by American bombs and planes that America provides to Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, and it gives them intelligence with AVAX and surveillance, and they have basically encircled Yemen. They have encircled Gaza, the Palestinian, and they throw from the top. They are dying from hunger, from in Yemen, from disease, from cholera, from coronavirus, from many diseases, from hunger. Look at the Yemeni kids' pictures. Their ribs are sticking out. Their legs and their hands, like they're so to the bone. They don't have any meat on the bone. Those people are starving to death. And America helps Saudi Arabia, dictatorship, UAE, Bahrain to and Egypt to go ahead and surround this problem, cut the food and the medicine and fuel in there. So winter they freeze and summer they die from disease. And all they do throw the bomb from top to them, killing them. For the past 5 years, they've killed hundreds of thousands of people. 500,000 people in Syria they killed with the ISIS that US created. Now in Iran, US has sanctioned Iran for over 41 years, medicine, food. But Iran is a very rich country and it has a good potential with university, knowledge, and technology. Even if you close Iran surrounded by a wall, they can still survive because they can produce all kinds of food. The land of Iran is just like the same weather condition like United States. You can grow anything in Iran, from banana to cucumber to vegetable to grain to rice, anything, and they do that and they survive, and they're probably exporting something too. They have over $40 billion export a year. They don't need to sell the oil to survive. They survive and make bigger bombs and better. And the war with Iran breaks. That would be the mother of all wars in the region, because none of those countries, Afghanistan and Iraq, they were not half as powerful as Iran. So, and when Iran war starts, Iran is not going to let those American allies on the south of the Persian Gulf, like the Emirates, the UAE, so they're going to hit those too. So all those countries will go to ashes too. And United States is going to hit the Iran too, of course. I know everybody's going to lose. In a war, nobody wins. There are casualties on both sides. I am trying to do, my intention is to avoid war. My intention is to make peace. My intention is to create a solution through peaceful means by providing justice, by providing people the opportunity to choose their leaders. Those leaders represent their people, and then they can make deals concerning that is uh, acceptable, not the deal that you creating by coercion or based on lies and claims that you yourself have a foundation from 3,500 years ago, but you're asking those people, other people in the region, don't live in the past, which their past only goes 70 years ago you took their land. You see how that goes? That doesn't say, and there are, those puppet dictators may listen to you because they don't have a choice. If they don't listen, they won't be in the power because their people didn't elect them. But the governments of Iran, the people elected their government. They're not going to listen to you, and they're the most powerful country in that region, and they can be troubled. So to avoid the trouble, to neutralize them, I'm giving you a solution, democratic solution. You don't even need bigger guns. The $993 billion that Trump puts military budget, spend it in America, make America a better place to live. Okay, well, I wish you all happiness. My intentions, as I said, from these words are to create peace and harmony. It's not for people who are looking for violence. And my solution is also peaceful, is democracy. I'd be glad to explain this further if anybody has any question. Wish you all the best and happiness, and thank you for listening.